Living in a big city can create some habits. Some of them are good, some not so much. And the good ones, obviously, you want to enhance, and the bad ones, you'd want to break. So in this video, we are going to cover 5 New Year's resolutions that's fit for a New Yorker. Hi, my name is Thea, and you're watching Urban Caffeine, a channel that talks about urban culture, transit, and history. If you like New Yorking, hit that like button and share this video with someone you know. They might like New Yorking just as much. I was first introduced to the concept of New Year's resolution by my 2nd grade teacher, Mrs. Lip. That's right, her name was Mrs. Lip. Since then, I've always been making New Year's resolutions. Some of them I've proudly kept, and some only prove that I'm not that superhuman after all. Whether I succeed or fail at New Year's resolution, I still like to do them every year because resolutions are a chance for a person to reflect back on their year, see where they are right now, and see where they want to be in the future. But as far as resolutions that relate to living in New York City, I have 5 that may relate to some of you New Yorkers. After this video, let me know in the comments below if they do, and if there's any other resolutions that you might want to add. Life in New York City is fast-paced. So fast-paced that jaywalking is rampant. Why waste time on a pedestrian light when there are clearly no cars coming? Disobeying the pedestrian light is a bad habit for New Yorkers. New Yorkers will interpret the walk sign as "you're free to walk" and this sign as "proceed with caution." And I'm guilty of falling into this habit even when I'm not running late and I have plenty of time to get to where I'm going. For me, I feel it boils down to impatience and the need to constantly move and not stagnate. I feel that I miss the fine details of the world around me that could be fascinating or interesting if only I stopped and smelled the traffic. I mean, traffic lights are not that long. They're what, less than a minute? I admit I'm in this bad habit of the need to always be moving and concentrating on the place that I have to be, rather than concentrating on the place where I am now. So this year, I resolved to be more zen about pedestrian lights, stand, wait, and observe the world. A lot of interesting things can happen in a New York minute if only we would stand and observe the world around us. I actually didn't drink that much coffee before moving to New York City. In fact, I hardly drink any coffee at all. Now I have 2 to 3 cups before noon and another couple cups in the afternoon. And I'm hard-pressed to find people around me who don't drink coffee. Coffee is just heavily woven into everyday New York life. In the morning, it's common to see bodegas, cafes, and even those food trucks and carts on the side of the streets all have lines for coffee. I call it the coffee rush hour. I used to borrow a coworker's Starbucks receipt because Starbucks will refill your cup for 50 cents if you show them the receipt of the coffee you bought that same day. At least at the location near my old work. The habit of drinking coffee is unavoidable. It makes sense since New York and coffee have a long history together. In fact, a lot of major coffee movements started here in New York City. And there's so much to talk about when it comes to coffee culture in New York City, from the infamous Anthora cup to the oat milk shortage that happened in Brooklyn. If you want to learn more about the coffee culture and history of coffee in New York City, you might want to join me in reading this book. This is what I'm currently reading this month. I have an Amazon affiliate link in the description below. As far as my coffee consumption goes, I drink way too much of it. I don't know about you, but coffee later in the day affects my sleep. So I'm resolved in 2022 to cut my coffee intake. Only 3 cups max before noon. The internet says there are over 800 languages spoken in New York City, and Queens in particular is said to be the capital of linguistic diversity. That's why learning a different language can be helpful in creating connections when you live in New York, or if you don't live in New York. Language is a gateway to fully learning somebody else's culture. If you really want to understand another culture, yes, you can eat the food, celebrate the holidays, understand the history, and that's a start. But to really immerse yourself in that culture, learning that culture's language really opens up this new lens. Yes, it's great if you can achieve fluency, but it's okay if you don't. The fact that you're learning another language gives you a much better lens into that culture compared to someone who's not. Believe it or not, my Duolingo streak is over 1,000 days. That's right, I've been at this for about 3 years now. I started with French, then I moved on to Spanish, and now I'm learning German from now through 2022. And am I fluent in any of these? I don't think so. But lately I've been using Pimsleur along with Duolingo, and I have high hopes. I believe I have a good chance of achieving fluency this year with Pimsleur as my tool of choice.
Ah, sehr gut.
Ah, sehr gut.
Sehr gut.
I've tried a lot of methods of learning a language. I've had private tutors, I've tried Duolingo, Pimsleur, Busuu, and yeah, I also attended the Defense Language Institute because I was a linguist in a past life. But don't think I'm some sort of savant when it comes to language learning, even though German is going to be my 6th language. Language I've dabbled in are Spanish, French, German, Japanese, Kurdish, and of course I know Filipino because that's my heritage. But when it comes to language, you either use it or lose it. For example, Japanese, I studied for a good amount of time, but whatever Japanese I know, it's gone. Sumimasen, sensei. Which brings me to an important point of this New Year's resolution. Language, when unused, can get really rusty to the point where it's completely foreign by the time you need to use it. Biram true. That's why this following year, I want to maintain that Duolingo streak, do a Pimsleur lesson every day if I can, maybe every other day if that's hard, find a German speaking partner, and use resources that I can find here in New York City. If you're learning a language and you're in New York City, you can use the city to your advantage. There are resources out there. It would be hard for me to believe that I'd have a hard time finding a German restaurant with German speakers hanging out at the bar. New York is very diverse, and if you want to get into language learning and you're an English speaker, I suggest Spanish as a start. Spanish is like the 2nd language of New York City. You'll find a lot of resources and you'll make a lot of connections. But for me, this year, I resolved to learn German. It's actually easier to be vegan than sober in New York City. Manhattan, for one, is a borough of speakeasies and great cocktails, and then you have Brooklyn that has a ton of breweries and distilleries. If you ever get the chance, check out the breweries and distilleries on the shores of both Queens and Brooklyn. So with that said, in my personal experience, it's easier to find a vegan meal than it is to avoid alcohol in the city. Most places in New York will have a diverse menu that have both vegan and vegetarian options. Most places, not all though. But many are happy to make substitutions. So while pizza is a dependable staple in the New York diet, it's highly feasible to eat more veggies and less pizza. They say you've become a real New Yorker when you'd rather stay in on a Friday night, order a pie or Chinese, and binge on Netflix. For good reason. If your day-to-day requires swimming in a sea of commuters and pedestrians, the thing that you want to do at the end of the day is lock yourself out from the rest of the world. But it's a shame because New York is a city of live entertainment, and I'm not just talking about expensive Broadway shows. Live entertainment comes in the form of comedy clubs, symphonies, open mics, live bands at bars and restaurants, outdoor concerts and plays, you name it. There are plenty of live entertainment options out there that are either free or affordable. And by affordable, I'm talking somewhere between $10 and $30. The reason for this resolution is I want to stay in touch with the world around me. For the last 2 years, I've been cooped up in my apartment, and it's easy to lose touch of what's happening in the community and life out there in the world. It's good to be out and about, if anything, to keep sanity intact. So those are the 5 resolutions I intend to keep. Comment down below if there are any resolutions that you would like to share. I hope you have a great year ahead, and I'm looking forward to delivering some fresh content in 2022. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss future videos. With that, thank you so much for watching, and happy New Yorking.